So feedback for part 3 of our 3-part final project. Working with the Origins ad or display poster. So I think overall, again, very good starts. Some critique that could potentially apply to everyone. There's some more sort of more common things. Some things that could be potentially applied to most of your projects. Overall, I'm pretty happy with where they're going. So let's jump right in. So keeping in mind that these are going to be 24 by 36, so these are going to be rather large. I explained it in the video about the assignment, but these are things that are going to be there's a little bit more reading time, so they're not quite like billboards, but they're also not quite like specific handheld things that are sent to people. They're for more general audiences. While you're walking through a mall and seeing a display poster, you do have a little bit more reading time, but you still want to be really efficient with what your message is. So let's jump in here. I think overall, this isn't too bad. I'm not sure if these elements here are intended to be, I get sort of a Christmassy feel. I feel like the green, it might be just the JPEG, but I feel like the green might be a little bit too bright in the background. I think everything overall might be a little bit cluttered, isn't the right word, but somewhat cluttered, and could use a little bit of breathing room. If you made, go with maybe a darker green for your background, maybe a little bit more of like a foresty green. This is reading a little bit sort of like bright limey green, not lime, but you know what I mean, a little bit brighter maybe than intended, and that might help the gold balance out a little bit. Maybe pop this more towards the upper right corner, and that would give your products a little bit more breathing room. You could potentially make them a little bit smaller, because again, we have quite a bit of space. You have to think about how these are going to be printed, and how large some of this is going to be. And then having your Origins logo in the top right here might allow you to make this a little bit smaller so it doesn't cut across this element here, and tuck it into this corner here. You might want to arrange it a little bit better. It's a little bit clunky with how you have everyone. I would assume everyone deserves, or with an S, deserves the chance to look and feel their best. It's a little bit wordy. I might see if you can sort of, I'm blanking on the word as I'm talking about words. You can be a little bit more economical with that line, and also maybe have it on 2 lines or even 3 maybe lines here and fit this area. The issue here is that there's no mention. This is specifically a product line for men, hypothetically a new product line aimed towards men, so there's no mention of men. So if you wanted to reword this somehow to be more directed towards men, there was a couple people that did that as well. So we want to make sure that we're hitting our audience as well. So make sure that we're hitting all the topics and all the points of our assignment. But I think overall the design is pretty good. Fairly clean. Some minor tweaks can be more. Could definitely be more effective. Is this already in point 2 here? Oh, okay. I thought I heard my kids. Thought I heard my kids. Yeah, baby. Okay. Gotta edit that out. So in this one, I really enjoy the image you have here. This can get problematic, as you probably have seen. Backgrounds like this can tend to give you a little bit of trouble. You can see the logo kind of drops out a little bit on you. Kind of disappears here. Your headline Your headline pops out, pretty decently, and your products work pretty well. I'm not seeing your crop lines here, which are kind of important to see where everything falls within that safe area. So make sure that I can see that as well, as you can see in some of the other people's assignments. So as far as the critique, I don't mind. I actually really like this image. It's kind of interesting, this couple on a mountaintop and why they're on a snowy mountaintop dressed the way they are is interesting, but that's kind of, it's an image that's used, not this image in particular, but imaging like this is kind of used for advertising like this. It kind of gives you like sort of fresh, clean vibe, I guess. So love your skin as much as you love your wife. I might, this is sort of nitpicky, but I might try different products, because you got like, I mean, not the shampoo, your head definitely has skin on it, but maybe a couple different products in there, see if there's other colors or other products that might just work better in general for this image. I would suggest putting the Origins logo maybe here. That might help it pop out a little bit more. You could even put a, think back to our drop shadow for our logo assignment or other assignments that we had if you need it. But that might help it pop out a little bit. You can change the color of the logo as long as it fits within Origin's basic look. But yeah, I think putting it up against a sort of more white background, even though there's shadows here, but might help a little bit because it kind of disappears and it's a little bit awkward. And your headline, I like the headline, but I think it needs work. You could even break it up, like love your skin, and then have, I think you mean as much as you love. You guys want to make sure that you're proofreading before these go out for your finals. So love your skin as much as you love your wife. So you could have love your skin, either ... or comma, and then on another line, as much as you love your wife. Something like that. So that might give you a little bit more room to make this font a little bit less compressed and a little bit more readable. But I think overall your image works well. Some minor tweaks to arranging. You have the idea that this is for men. Love your skin as much as you love your wife. Like obviously it doesn't directly say men, but I think it's pretty clear that it's aimed towards men, which I think is really good. Use of that sort of subtle nod that it's a product line for men. All right. So here we see our full bleed and trim and safe area. I think again, excellent use of imagery. I might make this a little bit bigger, make sure that it extends to that. It's minor, but make sure it extends to that green line there. I like the sort of headline we have. Again, obviously it doesn't say for men, but clearly there's a guy shaving. There's shave products, so I think it's pretty clear that it's aimed towards men. What you might be able to do is make these actually a little bit smaller and sort of tuck them more into this corner. Make them not a ton, but maybe make them slightly smaller, see how that works for you. And that might balance out this negative space. I really like the use of this, the image up the top, and then how you have your space arranged here. But I think with maybe making this a little bit smaller might allow you to arrange this a little bit differently. You could have like a fresh feeling on one line every time on the second line. So even if you had a fresh feeling, comma, every line, or every time rather, or even if you had like a fresh feeling, going to like here, give or take in this area, every time here, or again, even broken up onto two different lines, a fresh feeling every time. You have like one to the left, one to the right. But I like this sort of use of open space that you have here at the bottom, and I think you could push that. You could push that a little bit more by playing with the arrangement of your items, your text, and your images, making your images a touch smaller, and then you could kind of arrange your text a little bit more to have sort of a more refined design kind of feel. All right. So for this one, we have a decent amount of information. It's done fairly well. I would, for here, I like that you have the products at the top. You're going to use some of the things from the website. And then you have your headline, tagline, whatever you want to call it, and a sub, which you may or may not need, again, given that it's a mall poster. You might not need it. I might push this up a little bit, push this image up slightly, and then you could have your visitorigins.com down at the bottom. But you're also putting this in a store, putting this in a mall where there is an Origins store. So you could even have visit us, at Origins to learn more, or whatever. But if you wanted to have the website in there, that's totally fine. I might put it at the bottom here and move this up a little bit, and then have maybe arrange this a little bit. Help your skin and the earth. You might not need with Origins for men. You might just, because you have Origins, you have the guy washing his face. I think it's somewhat clear that this is a product line for men, already with your imagery. So simplifying this a little bit might help open it up a little bit, and then having the logo down at the bottom works pretty well. You just want to make sure that it stands out pretty well. I'll obviously open the Illustrator files and look too, because it might just be in the export that's a little bit grainy. But I think overall pretty well done. Maybe just tweaking your middle section here to give it a little bit more of a design aesthetic. Maybe using a different font, more of a display font. A font that's sort of elegant's not the right word, but a font that's a little bit more sort of matching their aesthetic, not directly, but giving it a little bit more more of a designed feel. All right. This one, I like how in general the overall feel sort of brings your eye down to the Origins logo on the background. So for this one, where the other ones have more pictures of men, so it's sort of clearer that it's aimed towards a male audience. This one isn't as much unless you actually take the time and read the products, which generally in a mall setting, as you're walking by, you probably won't do. You may or may not, but generally people probably won't take that much look at the details. So I think maybe more of a direct reference to men here. And I think refining your headline a little bit, maybe making your Origins logo a touch smaller, bringing everything down a little bit, or giving this a little bit more breathing space. Because again, when this prints, hypothetically, theoretically, whatever you want to say, when this prints at full size, this is going to be huge, which isn't bad, but keep that in mind. So take care of your skin with Origins brand new all-natural skincare products. So I think that's a little bit wordy. You have skin twice. This is sort of more advanced stuff, but these are the kind of things that we'll get into when you're coming up with your own headlines. You could say, take care of your skin. I had it in my head, and now I don't, before I did this video. Take care of your skin with Origins. Or take care of your skin. See, it's harder than it seems. Brand new all-natural skincare products. Oh boy. Because I wanted to add for men, but see, this is a lot tougher. I have to try to sit with this for a while, but but definitely refine this headline. It's a little bit wordy. You want to make, I know I'm adding to it, but you want to make direct reference that it's a men's product as well. But I feel like, to refine a little bit, I don't think you need the origins because it's 4 origins. So you have the logo here, you have multiple iterations of the logo, in the products. So you could even have, with our, brand new all natural skincare products. See, skincare twice is with all natural self-care products, all natural products, things like that. Because obviously if you're seeing this, it's skincare. But I think this headline, obviously, because I need more time with it, you need to take some time and really refine this headline a little bit. As it's a little bit wordy, and it's kind of, you have these 3 lines, like sort of work in that, to bring that eye down, but it's a little bit clunky with how it reads. But I kind of like how everything brings your eye down to the Origins logo. The background works pretty well. Your theme works pretty well. You just want to sort of make sure that you're making direct mention somehow of, it's like a men's skincare line, or a men's self-care line. And then we have this one. So here's where I'm talking about, again, when these print, like this is more than half of your poster here, so this is going to print huge. Again, there's not necessarily a mention of that it's a men's skincare product. I don't mind a natural way to take care of your skin. I don't mind the start you have here. I just think that it's rather large. You could have the blue come up a bit more, have your logo be much smaller. Even if you wanted to keep it centered, but have it much smaller, kind of like in this area here. A natural way for you to care for your skin. Somehow adding that it's directly for men. You don't want to just add like for men, but I would say like a natural way to take care of his skin. I don't know if that really works, but you see what I mean. So adding like sort of more direct messaging that it's for men. Definitely making this logo smaller. If you wanted to keep that. That sort of stylized look, you could have your logo be, a third of the size it is, sort of in the middle, and then you could have your headline be up here, and that gives you more space up here. You could even have, a tag in here about, care products for men or something like that. In this blue area, definitely bring that blue area up a little bit. Those kind of things. But I think here, again, the filling most of the space with the logo is not exactly the way you want to go with it. And then I see I did that twice. Oh no! All right, there we go. Then this one, I think we have a little bit of the opposite issue here. With you have a lot of information. We have a lot of different fonts going on. There's a lot of sort of conflicting elements within this design. So for this one, I might get rid of these. You're going to have to do a lot of editing, and meaning like editing, picking and choosing what to put in, not physically editing. So I think to start, you could bring your logo down in size a little bit. I don't mind the sort of blocks that you have, the blocks of color. I feel like you need to be sort of more, have more intent with why you're using them. And then definitely refine, I kind of like how you have this sort of bookend top and bottom. I might just use the block of soap for your origins. I don't think you need to repeat that origins. Even if you wanted to have that, organic skincare products for men, maybe not as on the nose. But if you were to just have that be your headline, high performance beauty made only with good stuff, and then have, while this information is good, you could bring that down a little bit, even if you had that down at the bottom and had your Origins logo at the top, and then rearranged your space here and maybe a couple different product shots, and then I would refine, maybe not good stuff, even if you wanted to pull something from them directly, high performance self-care, high performance, I would stay away from beauty, as far as a men's line goes, high performance products, something like that. And you could have, I don't mind the theme of made only with good stuff, but I would rephrase that sort of a little bit more elegantly, isn't the exact word I'm looking for, but if you look at their website and you sort of see their sort of attitudes and how they present themselves, where I'm not necessarily sure that they would go with that. They would want to be a little bit more refined with their headline. But I think that overall, again, if you wanted to have this down at the bottom, this is going to be sort of that reading time kind of thing, where I don't know if the viewer is going to take the time to read all of this. But it's not a bad idea. Even if you wanted to, again, have this down at the bottom and then have your Origins, even if you wanted to see if you could replace this, had your Origins, get rid of this box, have this box be down at the bottom here that we formulate without, and then this would give you more room to either rearrange your products or your headline, and have it be a little bit more designed, refined, rather than just sort of like blocks of text. But I think you have a good base to start with there. All right. And then this one, I really like what you have going on here. Some tweaks. It's tough to see where your crop is going to be. So if your crop is about here, then that's pretty good. But if it's not, if your crop is actually here, if you trim, then this fade is a bit awkward. So it's just going to depend on where your actual trim is. So that's why you want to make sure that you're definitely using the template provided, and that's why I need to see, for your final at least, I need to see your Illustrator file as well to see where your crops are. I would make sure that your logo, you can tell that the image is kind of over the logo, and there's this line added that's a little bit awkward. You could probably make this a little bit smaller to fit in that space, or even make him a bit smaller. The live free, I don't mind. I think you might be able to find some better placement for it, even if you had like live free going down this way, along with these lines. I like the graphic elements you have. These sort of graphic shapes that you've added. I would just be, if you're adding things like that, I would make sure that you're being intentful with it. They kind of look sort of like half done. You know what I mean? They sort of look like half measures. If you're going to do something like that, make sure that they're done, with purpose, if that makes sense. So having this, this block, make sure that you're, if you're using these blocks of graphics, make sure that you're keeping in mind, positive and negative space. And even though there's no solid black or white in this, positive and negative space can be, you're creating this positive space with these blocks versus, or vice versa, this positive space of the image versus the negative space of these big blocks. I think your block works really well here, because it kind of comes out from the product, at an angle down and then across the bottom. And then I would definitely looks like you have conditioner dropped off. So I would definitely make sure that you have your text all set. Maybe refine your text a little bit. Give it a little bit more. Give it a little bit more of a designed feel here. As similar with the live free. Instead of just having sort of a more plain text, you give yourself a little bit more refinement with your imagery. But just make sure, again, that these shapes can reflect in themselves. You have this, angle and have like a similar angle here and an angle coming up. You don't want it to look random is basically what I'm trying to say. Some of these shapes kind of look a little bit random. You want to make sure that you have these things that have an intent rather than just sort of like randomly placed. But overall, a really good start. The image works well. Obviously, the shampoo and the conditioner. This guy has awesome hair, so that works with the shampoo and conditioner, that kind of thing. So I think your imagery and your message works pretty well. I think that your layout could be refined a little bit more. All right, and then this one, going with the natural sort of wood background. I feel like in a similar way to a couple of the others, where your Origins logo is a bit large. I like the idea of the step 1, 2, and 3 for using these products. I'm assuming sort of like a, it's not, but having like your daily regimen kind of thing. But I would mention that somehow, introducing his new daily regiment or introducing your daily regiment and having a direct reference to men in there. There's sort of information with no background here, which can be problematic. So if you had your Origins logo a little bit smaller and then some sort of headline or something like that, something as simple as your new self-care regimen or, something to that effect. And then you could have your step 1, 2, and 3 working here. I would definitely change that font. It's a little bit, playful is not the right word. It's a little bit somewhat unprofessional. It's a little bit harsh to say, but you know what I mean. You could, again, I keep using the word refined, but you could be a little bit more refined with your text, with your actual font here, to sort of better match the aesthetic of the company. But again, I think making this a little bit smaller, adding that more direct reference to that what the steps refer to, and mentioning a little bit more directly that it's for men. And then again, going to this one with having the mention of specific products for men. You could even have the natural way for him to clean, something like that. But again, more direct reference, since there's not the imagery, but a more direct reference to men. And I think your logo drops out a bit. I don't know if you did or not, but trying maybe a white logo to go along with, what you have going here. I don't mind the sort of centered look you have. Again, I don't know if you tried it, but I would either maybe have your products on the bottom right and have your logo, or try to have everything centered. That might be a little bit awkward, but I think having this kind of drop off, I like the sort of natural, almost curve you have going from top to bottom here works well. If you had this sort of, with the logo and the products, you would have this kind of like arching kind of view happening, and then you could have the natural way to clean with a reference to the men's products going down the middle. And then lastly, I would pick a much more bold font. I see what you're doing with the sort of more delicate's not the right word, but the sort of more delicate background and having a font that sort of matched that, but it's a little bit too thin, and it drops out a little bit. So maybe finding you could still sort of find a more elegant font that's a little bit more bold, a little bit more easy to read, and then definitely making the logo a bit more easy to read. But I think overall, pretty simple but effective. Simple doesn't mean bad. A simple, effective poster could be really achieved with some tweaking of a couple elements here. And then we have here, with the imagery, we might not need direct reference to men. You certainly can, but feel truly clean. And then you have the image, and then the products, and then the Origins logo. I may try to squeeze in a reference to men, maybe not for this one. Obviously you can kind of see, obviously being topless, it wouldn't be a woman in the ad, but, having the body mostly obscured, I don't think it needs direct reference. Your font works pretty well. It's a nice heavy font. I might try playing around with, seeing if you can find a little bit, a font that's a little bit more of a display font, but still, bold and clean to go along with your ad. Definitely make the Origins logo a little bit bigger, and I might play around with either different products or less products, or maybe just rearranging this block a little bit. But I think definitely having your logo a little bit bigger and maybe this a tiny bit smaller, just to sort of balance out a little bit might help. And maybe play with play with some different font options for the top there. All right, so then again we have an image with a person in it, so the direct sort of more on the nose reference to men might not be necessary. So in this case, I would actually make your logo a little bit smaller here. Be careful of, I think you have a stroke on this, so be careful of having a stroke. If you want to make it pop out a little bit, maybe a drop shadow and put the stroke on the drop shadow so it doesn't interfere with the logo. So I think that you might have a little too much going on with text here. Take skincare back to its roots, and then maybe even getting rid of this, the smell like the forest. You kind of get the idea, the reference with the roots, and then the obvious picture of the trees. You kind of, I don't know, at least I would feel like you get that sort of already, that sort of forest reference. I feel like that's a little bit unnecessary, and it's a little bit awkward being on top of him anyway. I might play around with a different font here, and try to go a little bit more refined there. Even playing with like taking skincare back to its roots. See if that works. See which one you like better. That's kind of nitpicky, but see which one you like better. But I think that having just the headline, getting rid of this, and then tweaking, your product shots look pretty good. I like how you have them arranged. Maybe making this a little bit smaller, but this area, I think maybe just even getting rid of this might help. But I feel like with all of this going on, it's a little bit cluttered, a little crowded. So I think definitely getting rid of this might help, and maybe making this, but maybe making both of these a touch smaller. And then refining your headline a little bit more. You have lots of space here, taking into consideration your line spacing, your font spacing, etc. Maybe playing around with a couple different font options for the top there. But I think that secondary line is a little bit unnecessary and sort of adds a little bit of clutter. And this one, another clean design. I like the sort of play that you have going on with the naturally for him. There's a couple, the sort of advertising guy in me has a whole bunch of ideas for that one that are simple. I think, again, for the products, I think they're arranged fairly well. I might, nitpicking, make this a little bit smaller, this one in particular, and then sort of bring these down just slightly, maybe even this out, bring the Origins logo down to give or take you don't have to line it up perfectly. I like kind of how it's not exactly lined up. So even if you initially lined it up at the bottom edge here and then nudged it up a few clicks, 5 or 10 clicks, and then that way this space was a little bit more even. You can make it a tiny bit smaller and drop it down. Again, it's hard to tell with where the crops are, if this is your trim or if this is your safe or if this is a design element. Seeing it in that template would help a little bit there. But I like your background image. I like how you have this the sort of fog-ish gradient coming down. It almost gives this kind of cool appearance that as I'm looking at it, that the forest is sort of upside down with the fog coming up. It gives this kind of interesting optical illusion going on there. I think for the headline, for the ad guy in me, naturally for him, I feel like it might be mathematically center, but you might need to cheat a little bit here and there, nudging things over to the right or left. Because of this, it's optically, your eyes kind of play tricks on you. It's optically a little bit off center. Tightening it up a little bit, making it a little bit smaller might help. So you could have so my thoughts are naturally. So punctuation might play a role here, because you can emphasize how you want it to be. So like naturally for him, or naturally for him, that kind of, you could play with your emphasis there with some punctuation, or even how you have, even if you wanted to have naturally and then for him a little bit smaller on one line, for him. I kind of like the sort of super, super clean headline you have going on. I like the font choice. That actually works really well. I'd pay a little bit of attention to your kerning. But yeah, I think overall it's really well designed. I think maybe just tweaking a little bit, again, like I said in the beginning, tweaking your space down here. I like the idea of making all of this a tiny bit smaller to sort of emphasize this gradient you have going on with your image. And then even making this a little bit smaller and giving it more breathing room, and even playing around with placement and or punctuation, depending on how you want your emphasis to actually read. But I think overall it's a really clean start, and with some minor tweaks you could have a really solid clean ad there. So again, overall, I like the direction of where most of these are going and are going. I think there's some typical things for, or some common things for a lot of these that we can touch on. So looking at some others, other feedback, not just your own, might be very helpful for you guys. But I like the direction they're going, and I feel like you guys have some strong ideas to push forward for some final revisions.